Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall.
Host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Hey there, thanks a lot for downloading the Chris Stigall Show podcast. I know there are many, many podcasts you could choose from, so that you choose us is not a small thing. Thank you. Thanks for the 5-star reviews. Thanks, as always, for your written reviews at Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I want to tell you about my friend in Cincinnati named John Ruhlman. Now, he runs a company called U.S. Medical Plan. And John has been a sponsor of mine and a friend of mine for a long while. And he has gotten calls from this audience, including calls from my own family, calls from colleagues and friends of mine who have shopped with him their current health insurance plan. And he has saved friends and family thousands of dollars, literally. Let me give you for example. I have a friend who bought private health insurance for his family. His daughter had some special health needs that cost him quite a bit of money a month to get premiums covered for all of them. John found him identical coverage and saved him $2,000 a month. That's jaw-dropping money. My parents called John for a supplemental health insurance plan for their Medicare. John saved them $400 a month. Now, every nickel is precious, particularly when you're sitting on an income that you've got to count on for the rest of your days and you're counting your change. $400 is a lot of money. All right, so that's what John can do for you. Or maybe if you have no health insurance at all and you think it's too expensive, I can't afford it right now. He has over 100 different private health insurance companies all over the country that he shops and compares so that he gets you the best rates and never cheats you on coverage, by the way. It doesn't mean it's some scant coverage. Great rates, great coverage. Let John and his team at usmedicalplan.com go to work for you today. You can also call 877-410-4321. 877-410-4321, usmedicalplan.com. Glad to have you along, ladies and gentlemen. How you doing? Welcome into the midweek edition of the Stigall Show. Everybody taking deep breaths. Everybody remaining calm. Everybody remaining centered, everybody getting out and touching grass, spending time with loved ones and friends in prayer. I hope that's been my counsel to you today, and it will continue to be my counsel to you in life, really, but certainly during moments of high stress and high tension and high volumes of news that cause people to start behaving in very, very strange ways. That's all I can tell you. People that I really respect, people that I have enjoyed, people whose opinions I learn from often and make me think deeply about things, now seem to be going full tilt off the reservation. And I would say on both sides, if there's two sides to this, and it's interesting, it's not even Democrats. You know what Democrats would rather be talking about right now? It's funny. I've moved off of the ICE thing, Ed. I'm bored with the ICE thing. I hear another Democrat got arrested because he tried to, storm into an ICE facility or to help shelter an illegal alien or some such thing. Some politician from New York whose name I've never heard of and nobody cares about. Some inconsequential figure. The news headlines keep telling me I'm supposed to care about him. I've heard his name like 30 times in the last 24 hours, and I'm like, who and why do I care? I don't. This stupid theater acting from Democrat. Unhand me, Fed. I'm a Democrat. Shut up. No, we're all talking about Iran, Ed. Like, we're not. I'm sorry. I'm not the least bit interested in the new dopey Democrat doing street theater. Is it me?
No, it's not. It's just like when everybody was looking for their Trump bump, right? Remember Alvin Bragg and Letitia James and all these. That's what the Democrats are doing with ICE now. It's just like they all want their moment, I got arrested.
Alex Padilla yesterday delivered a heartfelt, tender, weepy I don't care. What is he accepting an Oscar? Like, who are these people and why do we care? It's so funny. The polling on this is like 80-20. Everybody wants to crack down on illegals. Do you know that the capture and release at the border, May last year to May this year, did you see this number yesterday? I put it up on social media. 0. It's not even a trickle. 60,000 people were detained and released into the United States 1 year ago last month. As of last month, a year later, goose egg. None. So being president matters. Who we elect as president matters. It didn't take an act of Congress. It just took a president with the will. Everybody wants the border shut down. Everybody wants illegals curtailed. And no, not everybody wants the lowly housekeeper or the lettuce-picking farmer to be, or the people that work in the mushroom, facility. There are a lot of mushrooms grown in Chester County, Pennsylvania, that I have called home for years and years, I learned. And there have been immigration raids on these mushroom farms, and they have rounded up. Look, there are a lot of undocumented workers, if that's what you want to call them, working in ag. There's no doubt about that. And Trump recognizes it, and he's trying to figure out what to do about it. We need some kind of work program, not amnesty, but we need some kind of ability to document these people and allow them to work. There's no doubt about that. I don't have any problem with that. I wish we could have a system that made it easier for people. No one in this country wants the border open. No one in this country thinks MS-13 gang members deserve their day in court who broken into the country illegally to begin with. Nobody thinks that. No one. It's an 80-20 issue. It's not even the debate. So I'm bored with, I have a stack of ICE stories today, and I couldn't care less about any of them. You know what's firing me up? Is the fact that inside our own party, inside our own voting bloc, inside our own ranks are people that have lost their cotton-picking minds. I know I'm not allowed to say that anymore, because apparently that's a reference to slavery or something. People that are out of their ever-loving minds over this Israel-Iran conflict. And they have made sweeping generalities and conclusions that I don't know where they get them and how they've reached them, unless they're in the room. And I grant you that there are probably people, opinion givers and pundits out there who probably have friends inside cabinet meetings or inside the national security apparatus or inside the Pentagon, perhaps, that go home and share pillow talk with their loved ones in the Beltway. I don't know. Or friends messaging other friends from inside D.C. that are Trumpists and saying, hey, I just overheard something and you're not going to believe this, or don't attribute it to me, you're off the record. Maybe there's a lot of that going on. I don't know. I'm not privy to any of it. I'm an American citizen watching in real time right along with you, and my reaction is one of caution, curiosity, interest, not hysterics, not sweeping conclusions. I'm not prepared to render judgment on anything we're watching right now. What I know is Israel has decided that Iran is a menace with whom they must deal right now. And they decided now's the time to do it. And they have delivered devastating force in doing so. What I know is that our President of the United States says, effectively, right on, BB, keep it up, pummel them into submission. They can't have a nuke. If you think you know their business and you think you know what you can do to take them out, go for it. You have my backing. Oh, and by the way, Iran, if you think you're going to strike any American interests, because Israel is strategically striking your nuke facilities and your military facilities, think again. If you do, there's going to be problems. This has led to this kind of unreasonable, bizarre reaction, as we covered yesterday, and I don't want to relitigate it, except now there's a new interview going around that's going to get a lot of attention in the next day. I saw it starting to percolate last night, and you're going to hear it today. Ted Cruz, who I consider I don't know, I won't say a friend of the show. He's maybe a professional friend, a professional alliance, a man I think is wicked smart. I think he's a constitutionalist. I think he's a sincere guy. I know the Cruz family a little bit. I think they're good people of goodwill, and they have good hearts. I think he's a brilliant debater, and he decided to sit down. I almost hate doing this for a second day because I know it's going to become this personality thing, and I don't want it to become a personality thing, Ed. I almost hate to invoke the name for a second day because I'm going to start getting the mail and the notes.
Sorry, man.
So Ted Cruz agreed to sit down with Tucker Carlson. And Tucker is probably the most prominent figure leading the charge right now in this debate that's gone sideways on what's going on between Israel and Iran right now, and I'm coming at this of goodwill. I don't have an axe to grind with anyone. I didn't wake up hating Israel, hating Tucker, hating Ted Cruz, hating Steve Bannon. I don't wake up hating these people, Ed. You know, like I'm pure of heart. I'm pure of motive here. I have no agenda other than I want what's best for the United States, and I assume that all of the people I just mentioned do too. I assume.
Of course. No, Chris, I mean, that's always been the hardliners to the middle Republican. No, we have a goal. We have a mission, and that's to move the movement forward.
Yeah, better the country.
Yes.
And look, have we been enmeshed in combat missions and wars that have not bettered the country? It is not even debatable. Of course we have. Yes, we have. We have been mired in wars. Vietnam, maybe one of the most famous, well before I was even alive and around, the hippie movement. You know, John Kerry throwing his medals over the fence and the whole thing. We get involved in things that are unwinnable. We get involved in things that can't be fixed. But then we also get involved in things that just take a little muscle, but don't necessarily need full-blown revision or toppling or gutting or what have you. The Cuban Missile Crisis comes to mind. You know, Kennedy, before the name Kennedy became mud in Democrat circles, incidentally, Democrats are really not even talking about this. Have you noticed that? If you watch CNN or MSNBC, it's like Israel and Iran are not even a thing. They're not even having the discussion, Ed. What's that about exactly? They want to keep talking about the theatrics and ice. They don't want to talk about this at all. Like, they don't even seem to care. And I'm not kidding. Like, they are barely talking about this. They'll talk about it for maybe 5 minutes off the top, and then they'll move on to, the theater, the street theater from Democrats. They do not want to discuss it. This is all a battle and a fight and a debate amongst fellow conservatives/Republicans. And once upon a time, in this country, again, this precedes me, but maybe a lot of you in this audience will remember a thing called the Cuban Missile Crisis. I certainly studied it and learned about it. Shorthand, Kennedy said, we can't have nukes knocking on our back door via Cuba. We can't have it. The Soviets were threatening it, using Cuba as a backdoor channel. And so what did Kennedy do? Did he take out Castro? Fast Eddie, you know a little bit about your history. Did Kennedy take out Fidel Castro?
He did not take out Fidel Castro, Chris. Nope.
Did we invade Cuba?
We did not. No.
Was there regime change?
Not then.
No. But Kennedy muscled Cuba. Kennedy muscled the Soviets to stand down, and the nuclear threat, poof, went away. This is not Vietnam. This is not Iran, or this is not Iraq and Afghanistan. This is more akin to the Cuban Missile Crisis, in my view. I have more to say on this in just a minute. Glad to have you along this morning, Houston. Good morning to The Answer in Houston, Texas. Looking live this morning before anybody's even wakened up. Sun's not even up in Houston yet. We're watching you on the Salem News Channel. Thanks for listening on 1070 AM in Houston and wherever you're listening. All over the country on great radio stations like The Answer in Houston. You know, we're growing by leaps and bounds every single day. Hundreds of affiliates all over the country and growing all the time. Glad to have you listening this morning as maybe you're heading into work or getting ready for work. And if you're watching on the Salem News Channel today, thank you. And if you don't have the app, that's free. And you can take that along to watch and listen anytime you want. Just go to the Salem News Channel app, click Watch Live, and it's right there. I also... I have to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for your continued generosity and support of what's going on with the Angel Tree Camp. This is something else, folks. You guys have blown my mind with your generosity. Well over 500 kids now with a mom or a dad who are in prison because of your generosity over the last weeks. The Angel Tree Camp is going to be able to send well over 500 kids so far. Before we wrap up this campaign on Friday, I hope today you'll consider joining those who've already given at chrisstigall.com. If you haven't been there yet, it's a really easy thing to see. It's at the top of, it's a banner, and it's right at the top of chrisstigall.com. Click on it, and you can give a donation. Again, $200 gets one kid to camp, but you don't have to give $200 if you can't give $200. Here's one example of the blessing your donation is. This is one of those things that in the midst of all the cynicism and all the snark and all the worry and all the tension going on in the country that you may be experiencing, here is real action you and I can take to improve the lives of fellow Americans. Like Shannon here in this clip. Take a listen.
All these children that have attended today are children who have been affected by crime and incarceration to some degree. Mom or dad currently incarcerated, and we serve them through our Angel Tree program.
Skylar Shannon is with Prison Fellowship's Angel Tree program.
Our hope is that they hear a story of redemption, one of hope, one that tells them that, you know what, just because you're born in a certain situation, you don't have to stay in that situation, and that our life choices affect when and where we're going.
So there you have it. That's exactly how your donation helps and how you can help this week. So thank you already if you've given. So many of you, I think we had something like 32 different $1,000 or more donors who are now lifetime subscribers to the Harum Society, by the way, and that offer extends to you. I got a new addition to the Harum Society today coming out. If you would like to become a for life subscriber, as a little thank you from me to you, that kind of generosity, I couldn't not repay. I mean, even the $200 donation is more generous than I can even say. So thank you. But people that are doing $1,000, I was like, I got to do something. So lifetime subscription to the Harum Society. If you want to do that, that offer is still open to you till Friday. But whatever you can give, I don't care if it's $1,000, if it's $500, if it's $200, if it's $5. This is a worthwhile mission. These people are the hands and feet of Jesus. And so if you can, go to chrisstigall.com. There's also a number you can call today if you'd rather, 888-206-2794, 888-206-2794. We're in the final 3 days of this campaign. We met and blew the roof off the goal. So thanks again already. Okay. Do I do this? I guess I'll do this because this is gaining steam, and I just feel it's something that we've got to address. Ted Cruz decided to sit down with Tucker Carlson, and Tucker fans, and I count myself as a Tucker fan. I always have been. I have raved many times about Tucker and his shows and his insights. I think he's done tremendous work in questioning many things in many places of authority. That doesn't mean that he's always right. It doesn't mean that I'm always right. But Ted Cruz, I believe, went to sit down with him to have a conversation of good faith, and here's how some of it went, 2557.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
how could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who claims... You don't know anything about the country. No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
Who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Okay, right, with our...
That's enough. So you get where it's going. I have more on this coming up, but I want to get into the spiritual angle of it with Lucas Miles. I'll address more of that in just a minute. It is always a pleasure to kick off the week with a friend. He has been a longtime friend, and I got to know him through COVID, which I think for the country, for a lot of us, I mean, globally, certainly, it was just a very dark time, and it was a time probably that brought me closer to the Lord than at any time in my life, and it really kind of changed me, and one of the guys that kind of helped me think differently, talk about it differently on the show, and I am so thrilled that subsequently since, guys like Charlie Kirk have seen the specialness in him and have made him now the director of Turning Point Faith. He's Pastor Lucas Miles, and he has his own podcast as well called Strong Church you ought to check out. Woke Jesus, one of his great bestsellers, one of many. Pastor, it's great to have you back, sir. Good morning.
Hey, good. Always good to be with you and good to be back.
This is a big one. I'm going to jump off with this one, but the subject of Israel And the subject of the Middle East is one that, as you know, as you read and watch a lot of conservative media, but you're also a Christian. And so I battle with this one because I know there's a great... there's some consternation in some conservative camps about Israel. And I'm not trying to pin you down or come at this from any angle. I'm just curious what a friend of mine who I trust has to say about Israel and Israel's right to exist and defend itself versus its neighbors, where there seems to be this schism amongst conservatives where they start to feel like maybe Israel is not the entity biblically that it was, and so we should feel differently about it now. How do you talk about Israel?
Yeah, I think obviously we see a tremendous spectrum and really a great chasm that exists between the different extremes, with Zionism on one side and maybe if we're being generous, kind of a radical replacement theology on the other side. And I think that a lot of people are trying to discern, what's the biblical approach to this. I think from a theological perspective, of course, I have, opinions about this. I think that what we see in Scripture, just simply put in a way to try to get everybody to be able to understand, is that there are promises that God makes to Israel, that they have a special place in his heart. They are his original chosen people. And that much of what we see the Apostle Paul do is trying to actually minister to the Gentiles for the sake of making Israel jealous so that they will come to know Jesus as their Lord and Savior. At the same time, we have promises for the church, and Israel has the opportunity to be included in that. And in fact, what the language Scripture would say is that the true Israel ultimately are those believing Jews that do put their faith in Christ, and the church of the Lord Jesus Christ that meshes together to form, the true body of Christ in that way. And so there are promises both to the church and to Israel in the New Testament as well as the Old Testament. And I think that we'd be foolish to try to minimize this, to think that it's only one or the other. And so with that being said, I think we also see a lot of the geographical moments and climactic events in the book of Revelation are geographically centered in the nation of Israel. And I think that it's important to recognize that you don't have to jump to these radical sides of theology to see that Israel has value, that God loves them, that there's promises for Israel, that God desires for Israel to be included into the church. And this prevents us from falling into extremes, judgment, hate, radicalism, I think all around.
So I think I've come to know it as, and again, I'm really a layman. You're not. So, but I've come to understand some people's view biblically of Israel is sort of I think what's known as a preterist view. I think that's the word, which is to say they look at the Bible and the way Israel is referenced in the Bible, and they say, well, that was then. That doesn't apply now. And I think that's the simplest way I can distill it. Is that accurate? And what do you say to that?
You're doing good. So preterist theology is basically it's an eschatological view, meaning it's a view of the end times that specifically centers on when this sort of fulfillment of the events of Revelation takes place or took place. And from the preterist standpoint, if you're a full preterist, you believe that all of the events of Revelation actually were fulfilled by 70 AD with the destruction of the temple. And so from that standpoint, it's very easy for a full preterist to look at the rest of, really any promise to Israel and say, well, everything with Israel was fulfilled by 70 AD. Everything from there on out is only applicable to the church. And so that would, usually what you would have is a full preterist also adopts replacement theology where the church is, all promises that appear to be for Israel are actually promises for the church itself, that the church has sort of usurped Israel's position in that way completely. And you have partial preterists, and there's a lot of different views, of course, in that. But I think that you have that exactly right. And I think that does frame a lot of people's ideology where they stop seeing importance or value or any sort of central aspect of the Gospels on taking place or having to do with Israel or the Jews. And I think that that's a limited view. I think that there's not a lot of support for a full preterist view. We could talk about partial preterist, ideas. There's some, I think some validity there. But something that completely discounts Israel as a whole, I think is pretty hard to support with Scripture.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, and I think that there are probably people in this audience, based on the reaction that has come from some when I talk about this. I'm not a theologian, and I'm not an apologist blindly for any government, certainly, but there seems to be this growing attitude amongst conservatives that Israel is not to be thought of as any different in any way, even by Christians, than South Korea or anybody else.
Can I make a case here for this?
Please.
I think that what I tell people, I mean, look, we have people that we lock arms with at TPUSA Faith. We're working with over 4,000 pastors. We've called on 20,000 plus churches. We are we're arguably in the church space more than anybody else in America is right now. And the one of the things that I find is obviously we have theological chasms that exist between some of these pastors that we work with. We consider most of these things secondary and tertiary ideas. Even somebody who holds to a form of replacement theology, I still believe as an American and as a Christian, it's advantageous and appropriate to also be pro-Israel. And the reason why I say that is specifically when you look at this issue of globalism, I think that there are, your audience knows this, that without a doubt, there's an agenda happening and has been happening. We saw it very evident during COVID, that there is a globalist push, this Marxist infiltration of a lot of our institutions to kind of create this worldly utopia, technocratic state. And there are two things that really stand in the way at a geopolitical level from that happening. The first thing is the United States of America. That was almost a non-issue under the Biden administration, with just a little bit of a remnant hanging on. The second thing is Israel. And Israel is the reminder that globalism does not have a complete foothold all across America. And there are so many nations that would love to see Israel wiped off the face of the map. And as a result, then globalism can thrive. And so even if you have a theological difference about, say, the church or Israel and these different things, that in of itself should not be an obstacle to your support of Israel as a nation, because they are holding a very valuable place in this fight against globalism.
And let's just be really blunt. Pastor Lucas Miles, director of Turning Point Faith, Strong Church, his podcast, and at Lucas Miles on X. Here's a stat I saw last week. New data from Pew, looking at our shifting religious landscape. Muslims, the fastest growing religious group over the last decade, increasing by 347 million. Now look, I'm not speaking of all Muslims, but I did post last week about Islamists. There's a difference. Islamic supremacy is real. They believe it, and destruction of anyone not like them is something they're very committed to. And that's what governs Iran. That's what's governed the Palestinians. And I think we got to be very blunt about that. Islamism is playing for keeps.
You're 100% right. And I think that most people, we just kind of have our head in the sand over this issue. I mean, there has been, even in this nation, such an increase of, Muslim extremists that have this, view of their faith, that it's okay to believe that your faith is the true faith. I don't have a problem with that. But when you say that, this is a faith and we have to force everybody to believe this, I don't care if you're a Christian or a Muslim. If you start believing in forcing some sort of crusade to get everybody else to submit to your viewpoint, that does not align with Western values. You can be a Muslim and exist, and thrive in America. You cannot be an Islamist and thrive in America, because the view is antithetical, I think, to the Western way of life and to American values and to our freedom of religion. And so this is something we have to take very seriously. I was in an Uber in LA 2 days ago, and I had a Muslim driver, young guy. I was in the car. I ended up using him twice. He stayed with me. He goes, I was enjoying the conversation so much. He's like, I'd love to take you to your next spot, and drove me for about 2 hours. And we had the best conversation about the gospel. I've sent him now resources, befriended him. We need to start having more conversations like that and not be afraid to talk about faith. Muslims, I think, in America there are many Muslims who are hungry for understanding. They haven't read the scriptures before, and with good conversation and a decent apologetic, I think that we can move the needle there.
Amen. And nobody's better at it than you. That's why you direct Turning Point USA Faith. Which quickly, the Strong Church podcast. I've just got about a minute. I'm sorry to push it, but can you tell me what you're up to?
Yeah, absolutely. So as the name suggests, we believe that the church in America should be a strong church. And so we're bringing on all sorts of great thinkers and speakers that really from diverse backgrounds to come in and talk about, their heart for the church and ideas and best practices and anecdotal, events in their life. And so definitely worth checking out. Available kind of wherever podcasts are found, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, et cetera. You can get it. Also have a new book I'd love to come back and talk about here soon, coming out later this summer, called Pagan Threat, really exposing how wokeism has come to seed fully and shown itself to be pagan. That's available for pre-order on Amazon and Barnes & Noble as well.
Woke Jesus was an absolutely brilliant book. Pagan Threat is going to be a brilliant book. Pre-ordered if you can. The Strong Church podcast, that's a must-listen. Your voice is so important, Pastor. I'm so glad it's growing and being more widely available to everyone. So thank you for your time this morning.
Appreciate it, brother.
Bill is in Tennessee waiting patiently. Bill, I'm sure glad you called. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. I'm a new listener. Enjoy your show. I caught the tail end of the conversation you had with the pastor from Turning Point. You had some great comments there. Just a thought I had. I reject replacement theology. I'm a pastor, 25 years, Protestant.
Can I, Bill? I don't mean to interrupt you, but what I want to do for everybody that doesn't necessarily know what that is, because it was a new term to me. Replacement theology, Lucas kind of mentioned it, you just mentioned it. I just want to say, and I'm going to distill this to the oversimplistic term that I think it is, and that is the Jews of the Bible, Israel of the Bible, that was then, it is not now. The modern-day Christian, wherever he or she is found, has replaced both Israel and the Jews of the Bible as God's chosen people. Have I got that about right?
Yes, you have. And here's what I want to say. Can I add something here? There's a scripture from Paul, one of his letters. It speaks about how we have to rightfully divide the word of truth. And what that means is, as Christians, Holy Spirit lives in us, and we've got to be able to speak the truth as led by the Spirit in the right way. Example, I love all people, but I'll use an example. Many people who want to say Christians don't love the LGBTQ plus community, and we use Leviticus to substantiate that. I mean, the belief that a man should be with a wife and so forth. And we use Leviticus, they'll say, well, Leviticus also says that you shouldn't eat shellfish. Do you eat shrimp? You see how we got to rightfully divide the word of truth. So we cannot say that the Bible has done away with the Jewish nation and their rightful place with God and the chosen people. That's still true. At the same time, I've been to Israel once. I'm going in October, God willing. At the same time, we've got to have compassion. Like one of the things that struck me when I was in Israel was the poverty on the West Bank side. It broke my heart. But we have to remember the Jewish people, they are God's chosen people, and He chose them to bring the Savior to the world. And we got to remember that. At the same time, we need to express concern when we see things happening like on the West Bank or Gaza, people starving to death. But we can never say, in my opinion, if we're rightfully dividing the word of truth, that God made a promise to Abraham. He's not broken that promise. The Israeli people, the Jewish people, are still God's chosen people.
But when you say that, here's the thing. People misinterpret that, and they hear you saying, Pastor, whatever Israel wants, Israel gets. You don't mean that the government of Israel or the current population of Israel, as they exist at present, are wholly and fully acceptable in the eyes of Jesus. That's people need to understand the difference. That's not what you're saying. That you like if you say I'm Jewish and I live in Israel, therefore no one can touch a hair on my head and I'm infallible. That's not what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that as Christians, we got to make sure that we see things right as led by Holy Spirit. We just can't deny that God made a covenant with Abraham. this
Pastor,
nation. That's it's God's people. So no, I'm not saying everything they do is right. I'm not saying that. We just got to walk that line. You know what I'm saying to you. That's all I wanted to say today.
I'm glad you said it. I think it's important. I think anybody that calls themselves a Christian ought to have a serious discussion in prayer and thought with themselves and their congregants and their pastors and see where you square on this. But again, the pastor said something, and I'm really grateful for the call and the reminder. This is about a conversation of goodwill, being of goodwill, and nuance. And nuance is difficult in situations like these. Analogies are not perfect. Earlier, I'm already getting hate mail because I brought up the Cuban Missile Crisis. People that are Kennedy haters and, say I'm not framing that correctly. Well, the analogy is not perfect, but it's more analogous. What we're seeing happen with Iran, and in terms of our potential involvement there, if any, is more akin to the Cuban Missile Crisis than it is to Vietnam or Iraq or Iran. It's not a perfect analogy. But again, if you're of goodwill, you're trying to get to a place with your position where you're not assuming this is a discussion for us, okay? This is inside the tent stuff. And I'm a little fixated on it. Maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe I should just move on and pretend it's not happening. But it bugs me. It bugs me when I start to see people inside our own tent starting to fire at one another, people that I ordinarily think are of goodwill and don't mean each other ill, but are driven by something that is not of goodwill and not really earnest or sincere. It really bothers me. And I think sometimes we have to pump the brakes and have a conversation amongst ourselves. I have more to say on this coming up.
Everybody talking about the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again. Balance of Nature says, welcome to the party. They've been working hard, producing a vibrant nutritional supplement second to none for many, many years before it became fashionable. So many other people use chemicals and additives for their supplements, but Balance of Nature is made solely from whole food ingredients. And while other methods sacrifice nutritional quality for the sake of profits and volume, Balance of Nature, they use an advanced cold process, a vacuum cold process. It includes freeze-drying their fruits and vegetables into a fine powder, and so that allows them to retain as much nutritional value as possible. And they don't cut corners, for volume or other things, as maybe some other supplements do. Balance of Nature packs a real nutritional punch, and that's the whole reason to take Balance of Nature. Get the most nutrition for the sake of your good health. And if you use my name, Chris, as your promo code right now, you'll save 35% off your order, and they're even going to ship it to you for free. Plus, a money-back guarantee if you're not happy. Call them, 800-2468-751. Use the discount code Chris. Once again, don't forget the discount code Chris for that big 35% off savings plus free shipping. Order online, balanceofnature.com.
Here we are, 2025. Happy New Year. And our friends at Gulag America are back and along for the ride. They have been not only great sponsors, but they have been ride or die founders at the Harump Society. I'm so appreciative for our friends at Gulag America. I love the work they do. And we have every reason to be optimistic in this new year. They are, we are, all of us are. America's resurgence, it's back. Trump's back. And Gulag America wants to continue to be your premier source for topical and satirical apparel and other gear designed to help give you voice for your love of liberty and your desire to see America great again. I know we all share that in common. Gulag America does too, but that doesn't mean that the deep state's not going to be busy at work. They're not going to go gently into the good night, as they say. So Gulag America is ready. They want you battle ready. They want you geared up, and they've got hilarious stuff for you to buy, and they're going to give it to you at a deep discount to kick off the new year. You ready for this? You take 15% off all orders at gulagamerica.com when you use my promo code Chris15. So if you go shopping today and you see a shirt you like, and you will because they're hilarious, go to gulagamerica.com, type the promo code Chris15. That's Chris15. Type it in the checkout, and then you'll save big. Enjoy the new year. Enjoy new savings with that same quality, that same hilarious attitude that you've come to expect from our buddies at Gulag America, where they say, it's not our wish, it is our warning. Glad to have you along, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you into the midweek edition of the Stigall Show. Thanks a lot for choosing us wherever you happen to be and however you happen to be listening to this show. Some of you podcast it. I'm grateful that you do. Some of you listen live on fabulous radio station like this one. That you're listening right now. And those of you that watch on the Salem News Channel, you got a live shot of Chicago today. weird kind of low clouds covering the downtown skyline this morning. Thanks for watching on the Salem News Channel. And thanks for taking the app along. You can listen and watch there. It's easy. It's free. Click Watch Live, and it's right there. And by the way, all the past shows are there, too. So if you like watching or if you want to listen on the podcast, chrisstigall.com. It'll take you there to all of it. I hope that you go there. Okay. Again, these are not perfect analogies. These are not perfect analogies. So all of you history buffs who want to go professorial on me, easy, slow your roll. Remember, the rule here, goodwill. Trying to make points of goodwill. Not trying to be inaccurate, not trying to obfuscate, just trying to make points and be of goodwill here. We're all friends, I'd like to think. Most of us anyway, except the drive-by haters. They don't count. But I assume, for the most part, if you're here with me, you and I agree on most things. Now, there is a growing schism on this Iran situation, and I just want to address it head on, and dive headlong into it, because I think it's important. And I don't like, frankly, where it's going. And I'm going to play it again just one more time, because some of you may not have been with us earlier, and I didn't have a lot of time to expand on it, so let me do it one more time. Let's go back to the Ted Cruz-Tucker exchange here, 2557, if you please.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah.
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So actually,
I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here, because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting
Israel.
Israel.
High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay.
Tucker changed the direction of that debate about 3 different times. Now, Ted Cruz is a big boy and doesn't need my defense. Ted Cruz agreed to go in and sit down, and I'm reading that everybody thinks, not everybody, that's not fair, not everyone, but this is what I'm talking about. Let me just start by saying, no one that I respect is calling for regime change in Iran. Okay? And I think it is false to assign that to the Trump administration and most of us who believe Iran has to be dealt with. There is a difference between dealing with Iran and trying to change who leads Iran. There is a difference. And I'm not suggesting that Lindsey Grahams of the world don't want to bomb them into submission and blow their leadership out of the water. That's not Trump's position. I'm sorry to do this again for another day, but I think this is important. Let's go to clip 2017. Let's hit rewind a couple of weeks ago when Trump went through the Middle East and said this.
In recent years, far too many American presidents have been afflicted with the notion that it's our job to look into the souls of foreign leaders and use U.S. policy to dispense justice for their sins. They loved using our very powerful military, and now it's really the most powerful it's ever been. We just are getting a budget approved, $1 trillion, highest budget we've ever had in history for military, $1 trillion. And we're getting the greatest missiles, the greatest weapons. And, I hate to do it, but you have to do it because we believe in peace through strength. You have to have the strength, otherwise bad things.
Yeah. So Trump has been very clear. The Trump doctrine is, for too long, former presidents have thought they can go in and change regimes. And it's led to dire consequences. This is not Iraq. This is not Afghanistan. This is not Vietnam. When we bombed the hell out of the Houthis, why did we do that? Why did we do that? We didn't eradicate the Houthi leadership. We didn't eradicate the Houthis at all, but we bombed them into submission. And why were we doing that? Why did Trump decide ultimately to decimate the Houthis? Because they were blocking our interests, our ports of entry, the seas, our trade, and they were firing on us to boot. Did we wipe out the Houthis? No. Some would suggest that we should have. Neither here nor there. I'm just saying we didn't. We didn't. And here with Iran, has Donald Trump said, I want the supreme leader out? No, in fact, he made the point yesterday on social media, we know exactly where he is, and he's not in any danger. But we want him to submit. We want full submission. We want to kick open the doors of this place. We want to make sure you're not developing nuclear weapons. We want in. We want to see what you're doing. But we're going to strategically take out your nukes one way or the other, and we're going to let Israel do it. Now, Tucker is jumping all around in this debate with Cruz, trying to make it sound like he wants a regime change. I'm surprised Cruz accepted the premise. I don't think that's what Cruz is advocating for, in my personal opinion. It's certainly not what I'm advocating for. I don't know that it's what Trump's advocating for. An overthrow of the government, boots on the ground, an occupation. None of that is what I want. None of that is what Donald Trump wants, to my understanding at this hour. And if there's anything that we end up engaging militarily, it sounds potentially like, and I'm not even sure this is happening, the bunker busting bombs from the air may come into play to take out nuke sites strategically. Maybe. That's a maybe, and all I hear about that is through mainstream media. Not that I hear that specifically from the Trump administration or know anything about what their plans are. Look, again, we have to be of goodwill here and understand Iran is a threat, and I would just turn the tables a little bit. What I never hear Tucker explain, respectfully, what I never hear these people who go after, Ted Cruz and others for being, too pro-Israel and regime change and all of this stuff, I never hear them explain why Iran isn't a threat. Ed, do you? Do you ever hear any of these people explain why Iran isn't a threat? The onus is always on us to either justify or defend striking Iran, which we should. I don't think we should just willy-nilly strike anybody anytime. I think that there are many people making a credible case as to why Iran has to be dealt with, but it always comes from this place on the other side, like Iran is holier than thou. Like why is there never a defense of Iran laid out exactly? You know what I'm saying? Do you ever hear it?
Sure. No, I don't. Just that we shouldn't do it and we shouldn't be there. That there has been no defense of the regime that runs Iran and how bad they've been for how long.
They have already. I mean, their government media outlet has said that they're about to launch something. They just said yesterday they're going to do something that will be remembered for centuries. I don't even know what that means. Their supreme leader is saying that, what did he say today? The battle begins, their supreme leader said. Zionists will, feel the full force of battle begin, whatever. So, I mean, here we are. Iran was developing nukes. You don't have to believe that if you don't want to. But we've gone through, as I discussed yesterday, the better part of 2 presidencies, 2 terms, and then a third that was really an extension of Obama, who've shunned Israel, who've emboldened Iran and allowed them to harden their position and get worse. And they're radicals. They're Islamo-supremacists. And they openly threaten our chief ally in the region. We have chosen to deal with it, not with boots on the ground, not with our direct physical, necessarily even involvement. We're not calling for regime change either. Trump is very clear. Stand down. Total submission. Open the doors. Let us see what you're doing in there. You can't have a nuke. That's all. It's that simple. And I just don't, I feel like there's a real dishonesty driven by a unique dislike of Israel And that is not a place of goodwill, folks. That's my point. There is a unique dislike of Israel driving this conversation, and I never hear anyone on that side of this debate defending or explaining Iran, that they should be hands off and be left alone. I never hear that. I would be curious to hear it, actually. This is the Stigall Show. I want to revisit something that I was just kind of touching on a minute ago, and that's this idea of boots on the ground and regime change. And Jim was calling to talk specifically about this idea of regime change and whether you should support it or not. I'm neither here nor there to me. What I know about Donald Trump at this hour is, and this is the only thing that matters, is who's the commander-in-chief right now. That's Donald Trump. I established already yesterday, I trust Trump. Trump has said nothing about regime change. Trump has said nothing about sending our military, our boots on the ground into the country. He said nothing about that. So I see this poll today at the Federalist. Just 16% of Americans want the United States involved in Israel-Iran war. I don't either. See, there's nuance. Ed, this is nuance. Nuance is hard. And if you're of goodwill, you appreciate nuance in a complicated debate. If you're, frankly, an emotional idiot and or someone who's just interested in trying to get clicks and downloads for your show, cynically, you have these charged, accusatory conversations not rooted in goodwill. You see the difference? I'd like to think my position is one of goodwill. You ask me, do I want the United States involved in an Iran-Israel war? I say, of course I don't. Right?
Of course. Right.
So when the Federalist writes this, I assume 16% of Americans want the U.S. involved in an Iran-Israel war. They poll U.S. adults. And again, when you poll adults, what does that mean? That's just any Tom, Dick, and Harry off the street. Do most adults know or understand or care the threat Iran poses? Maybe they don't. But the question is an honest one. Do you want to get involved in an Iran war? No one wants to go to war. I don't want us to go to war. I don't think we're going to war. Do I think Iran poses a threat? Does anybody ask that? Ed, this is my point. I could ask this same group of adults in this same poll, do you think Iran poses a threat to Israel and the rest of the world, including us? Yes or no? What do you think the answer would be?
Of course. They've already proven it with October 7th in Israel. They funded that entire operation that Hamas carried out. Yes, they do pose a threat.
So I can hold two thoughts in my head at the same time. I don't want to go to war with Iran. I don't think we have to physically involve ourselves in a war with Iran. I do think they're a threat. And I do think if Israel wants to take it out because they feel that they're in the most immediate danger and we can aid Israel in doing so, fine. Now, I think that's a perfectly consistent yet non-interventionist attitude. I don't accept leaving Iran alone. By the way, Tucker asked Ted Cruz, do you know the population? Do you know the population of Iran? No, I don't, but from what I'm told, a good number of them, more than half of them, are very moderate. They don't like living under this dictatorship. Does that account for anything? That's a sincere question. Quick break. Tulsi Gabbard. I asked rhetorically, where's Tulsi been on all of this? It turns out during the Camp David meetings over the weekend when Trump huddled up, she had guard duty. So people were trying to make something of her not being there. She had National Guard duty. That's her official statement. That's what she said she was doing. That's why she wasn't at Camp David. That has been interpreted by other people as, well, Trump is icing her out. She doesn't have a seat at the table. Now, does anybody think that Donald Trump put Tulsi Gabbard in this position only to now ignore her 6 months into the job? Here's Trump on Air Force One, 2553. Here's what he said when asked about her specifically.
You've always said that you don't believe Iran should be able to have a nuclear weapon, but how close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having one.
Yeah, so J.D. Vance defended Tulsi on X. I'm not going to read it all to you. But he said, I don't care what she said. J.D. Vance's point was that was back in March. A lot has changed since March. I don't know what that is. You don't know what that is. I'm not in the meetings. Tulsi says, by the way, publicly, she and the president have no daylight between them, and that her testimony in March is really not entirely different than what the president's already said. Again, I don't have any evidence, and I don't believe that there's daylight between Trump and Tulsi. And you shouldn't believe it either until you see evidence of it directly. Again, just because a talk show host says it, it doesn't mean that I'm right. It doesn't mean that another talk show host is right, but just be mindful of what motivates anybody. I come pure of heart here. I was joking earlier off the air. I was joking. I would love to pocket some of this money that I keep hearing. Anybody who wants to deal with Iran and the threat that Iran poses, I keep hearing that a lot of these people are bought and paid for. Fast Eddie, by whom? I don't know, but I would love some of the money. I really would. If anybody wants to give to me, I will say whatever you want. We have a lot of great sponsors here. Now, I try never to endorse anything that I don't believe in, and I think that's always been consistently the case. Everybody that has a sponsorship on this show, I use their product or believe in them and know them personally and recommend them to you. If there's anybody that would like to give me money for advocating taking out Iran's nuclear enrichment program, I would happily accept it, but I am at present not on the take that way. You, Ed, you're the executive producer. Anybody buying you off?
I'm not, but the phone lines are open. I mean, I'll hear it, of course. You're always willing to contribute to my pizza fund for the betterment of the world, okay?
Here's President Trump answering Caitlin Collins' question about our involvement, 2554.
Is there any guarantee that if the U.S. did get involved militarily, that a U.S. bomb could destroy Iran's nuclear program and facilities?
Is there everything or anything or life you done it? Look at you, right? There's no guarantee.
You think if the U.S. got involved militarily, it would actually wipe out Iran's nuclear program, or where's your assessment of that?
Well, I hope their program is going to be wiped out long before that, but they're not going to have a nuclear weapon.
Did you hear the answer? Is anybody listening? Am I crazy? Is anybody listening to what the man just said? That was Donald Trump on Air Force One yesterday. Did you hear him? He just said, I hope their nuclear program is wiped out well before we would need to get involved. He just said it. And never one time has Donald Trump publicly said one word about toppling the government of Iran or regime change. Not one time. Now, the media has been telling you about the bombers, the different hardware we have, the bunker-busting bombs and our capability and what we can do. Of course, the media is drumming it up. And yes, the war hawks like Lindsey Graham have never seen a war they don't want to go hard charging in. I think that's very real. Do I think the military-industrial complex is a real thing? I absolutely do, folks. I do. Yes, I believe there are people like Dick Cheney who profit off of war. I think Iraq and Afghanistan were a buzzsaw that I now, in hindsight, and I was wrong about them, by the way. I've told you on this show, I come to you with great humility. I was wrong, stone cold wrong, to be led as a young man who had pride in country and was furious about the events of 9/11. And our leader, George W. Bush, for whom I voted twice, said, we're going to go get the terrorists. And I said, right on, 3,000 dead Americans, go get the bastards. George W. Bush and people like Colin Powell and others said they got WMDs in Iraq. Okay, go after the bastards. Go get them. We were wrong. You ever watched Charlie Wilson's War? It's an interesting, or read. I mean, it was a book, and then it was made into a movie. I was a baby. I wasn't around at that time in history, but we armed Afghanis back then to help defeat the Russians. How did that work out ultimately? It concluded basically with Charlie Wilson, member of Congress, who helped advocate the idea of arming Afghan rebels to help drive the Russians out, because Russia was our shared enemy at the time. The thinking was, well, perhaps we can have some kind of friendship or relationship with the Afghanis. And again, folks, I'm oversimplifying this. This is nuanced stuff, and I understand you people that study war and combat and history. I'm not trying to become a historian or professor here, but I'm speaking in generalities. What ended up happening? We dump a Brinks truck of money and armament into Afghanistan, and then ultimately it turns around and bites us right in the butt. decades later. And then they become, then we got, lo and behold, that gives birth to the likes of Osama bin Laden. And those that would mean us harm. And ultimately who we had to go in and try to destroy. And then we, 20 years we're locked in a quagmire there with no real, we had this idea that we were going to change regimes in Iraq. That didn't work out the way we'd hoped, that everybody was going to vote and it was going to be a democracy. It didn't work out. I don't hear Trump advocating for that. What I hear Trump saying consistently, and I'm defending Trump here, folks. I'm not defending anybody else. I'm not defending Ted Cruz or Lindsey Graham or any member of Congress. I'm not defending the military-industrial complex. Yes, I think it's real. I'm defending Donald Trump because I'm listening to his words. And I'm going to do it again. 2017. I just need the first few seconds of this clip. 2017, Paul. Just give me the first few seconds. Trump says the most critical thing here. This is all you need to know about the Trump doctrine.
In recent years, far too many American presidents have been afflicted with the notion that it's our job to look into the souls of foreign leaders and use U.S. policy to dispense justice for their sins. They loved using our very powerful military.
Yeah. Right. And so let's go again to what he said yesterday. You just heard that one more time. Caitlin Collins asking Trump, are we going to get involved? 2554.
Is there any guarantee that if the U.S. did get involved militarily, that a U.S. bomb could destroy Iran's nuclear program and facilities?
Is there everything or anything or life you done it? Look at you, right? There's no guarantee.
You think if the U.S. got involved militarily, it would actually wipe out Iran's nuclear program, or where's your assessment of that?
Well, I hope their program's going to be wiped out long before that, but they're not going to have a nuclear weapon.
He is not saying anything about regime change. Fast Eddie is your host and correct.
Not anything that he has said, any statement that has been made, has all about Iran not having a nuclear weapon. That's it.
16% of Americans want, only 16% of Americans want the U.S. involved in an Israel-Iran. Who's advocating for war? I know that there are some. Yes, there are some. John Fetterman. John Fetterman just said yesterday we ought to go in and bomb the hell out of their leadership and get rid of them. Kill them, murder them, axe them. And yes, Lindsey Graham too. Not my position. Not most Americans' position. Nuance is important. And nuance has left the discussion. Let's go to Randy in Texas. Randy, I'm glad you called. Welcome into the show this morning. Hi.
Oh, yeah, Chris, good morning, and we want you to know that, along with our coffee, you make our day start off great, so we want you to know that.
Thank you, brother.
A burning question for my wife and I, we discuss this quite often, and I've never really heard it discussed that so much. Why is there so much hatred for the Jews? Why? We know it's gone on since the beginning of time and up till now, but what is this consistent hatred for the Jews? We don't get it.
I wish I had a smart answer for you. I don't. But what alarms me a lot is to see people that I have enjoyed, consumed, hosted on this show, admired, referenced many times. Their criticism of what's going on right now seems to be driven exclusively by their dislike, their distrust, maybe their outright hatred for Israel and nothing more. And I don't understand it either, Randy. I really don't. I'm not smart enough to understand it. There is this, and there's another line of questioning in this Ted Cruz-Tucker exchange in which he says, he says to Ted Cruz, do you think Israel is spying on us? I assume that a lot of this podcast conversation between Tucker and Ted Cruz that's being released today is Tucker trying to prosecute Israel to Ted Cruz, and Tucker highly suspicious that Ted Cruz is bought and paid for by Israel. That's the thrust and the theme of the interview. And you're seeing a lot of this inside social media circles that we conservatives follow. And I don't know where that comes from. I can't explain it because I don't know Tucker Carlson. I don't know his heart. I don't know why he's so driven to prosecute Israel and not Iran. It is a very curious thing to me. It's one I'd love to ask him if he were here. Why only focus on the persecution of Israel? And the same is true for Hamas. Hamas goes in, slaughters Jews on October 7th, and inside of a calendar year, many, even on our side, somehow make Israel the enemy for wiping out Hamas. You're smarter than me if you can figure it out, but it exists, it's real. And it's the total absence of goodwill amongst people who are trying to have an honest debate about this situation. I got a little off what I meant to make a point about, because I know you're, again, if you're a social media consumer, you're likely going to see this sent around, and it's being trumpeted as Tucker Carlson just decimating Ted Cruz in a debate that I think he's going to drop today. And one of the things that Tucker says to Ted Cruz is Israel spying on us? Do you believe the government of Israel is spying on us? To which Ted Cruz concedes, yes, probably. And we're spying on them too, by the way. Tucker then fixates on this point and says, you're a United States senator. You're okay with Israel spying on us? And just keeps on it and 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 won't let up off of it. And I thought to myself, what a strange and bizarre line of questioning. What drives that exactly? I could ask that of any country, could I not? You could ask that of any human being, could you not? I mean, original sin. I said on social media to somebody in response to this last night, if you could see into the hearts, minds, and souls, if you were omniscient, if you could see inside every human being, including those you're closest to, do you think you'd like what you saw, Fast Eddie?
Hell no. No. Absolutely not. No.
Yet, you still live with those people. I'm sure that if you saw in the deepest recesses of your family's minds, you wouldn't like what you saw, nor would they like what they see in you, right? If they knew your truest, deepest, darkest feelings, sentiments, past dealings, things that you'd rather not have out in the public, things that we keep to ourselves, I'm certain every one of us has something about ourselves, right?
I think, yeah, you're talking about the stuff that only God knows about, yes.
Yes, for which, we atone and he will ultimately judge and all of that. But I just think, what a strange thing. Does Israel spy on us? Ted Cruz says probably, and we do on them. Why are you okay with that? Shouts Tucker over and over and over to Ted Cruz. So we're not to have allies because they probably do bad things we can't necessarily prove or we know they're up to, but I don't get it. And again, why the fixation only on Israel? It's something no one can answer, and I never ever hear why these very same people critical of Israel never seem to have an unkind or bad word to say about Iran or Hamas. Islamofascists who genuinely believe in the destruction of anyone in the West not like them. They say it openly. If your neighbor is stockpiling weaponry every day, all day long, every day, just stockpiling guns, and says regularly on X, on social media, or maybe steps out their front door and says, "Hey, Eddie, I hate you and your family. You shouldn't exist. Have a nice day," and you keep seeing them carrying guns into their house day after day. And every day they greet you and say, "I'd like to see your entire family annihilated. Have a nice day, Eddie."
Yeah.
The thinking by some on our side is, well, bygones. I don't understand that. I don't understand that. And now we believe we know, people that I trust. I mean, even Tulsi Gabbard acknowledges somebody sent me a note and they said, you really ought to read Tulsi's full statement, what she said back in March. And I thought it a good point. Her full statement said, we're closely monitoring if Tehran decides to authorize its nuclear weapons program. In the past year, we've seen an erosion of a decades-long taboo in Iran on discussing nuclear weapons in public, likely emboldening nuclear weapons advocates within Iran's decision-making apparatus. Iran's enriched uranium stockpile, listen to me, this is from Tulsi Gabbard's own reporting in March. Iran's enriched uranium stockpile is at its highest levels and is unprecedented for a state without nuclear weapons. So that doesn't wash. That doesn't make any sense. The argument, they're stockpiling more uranium, enriched uranium, than at any time in history. But I'm sure it's fine. All the while they're saying Israel, Jews, and the great Satan, the United States, ought to be wiped off the face of the earth. It's fine. Is the argument? Weird argument. It's actually not it's a non-argument. I understand the prosecution of warmongers. I understand the prosecution of the military-industrial complex. I understand the prosecution of people like Lindsey Graham. I get all of that. And in many ways, it's justified, and I support it. This is not Afghanistan. This is not Vietnam. This is not Iraq. And more importantly, most importantly, the commander-in-chief is not the commander-in-chief that presided over all of those. He has a different worldview. He has American interests in mind first. And he has said nothing about direct engagement or regime change. This is not a typical president, folks, and I stand with him. This is the Stigall Show.
It's been my pleasure and honor to talk about Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, just off the Blue Route, as my dentist and friend of over 12 years. But now he has two brand new associates, his daughter Alexa and Dr. Geddes. Tell him about him, Bob.
Yeah, Chris, I can't begin to express how proud I am, obviously, of having my daughter there. Also, Dr. Geddes is just a wonderful addition to our practice. He is a classmate of my daughter Alexa's at Temple Dental School, and I have known Jared for about 7 years now. Getting to know Jared over the years, it was my wife Debbie and my daughter Emily who kept telling me, you have to hire Jared. You have to hire Jared. He's going to be a superstar. Jared went off to USC, did a 1-year residency after his year at Temple, and he came back and he worked for about a year in a practice in New Jersey. And after, again, my wife and daughter beating my brains in, I got the message and I hired Jared, and he's been a great addition to Williamsburg Dental.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com.
Hey there, it's Chris from my good friends at Texas Bullion Exchange, the good people that tell you there is no reason to live with all of this angst and anxiety about the markets going up and the markets going down. Why don't you just do something that has helped people calm their nerves in volatile markets for years? Texas Bullion Exchange, real physical gold as part of your savings. That's what they do. It's not about getting rich quick, mind you. It's about helping protect what you've already earned. And if you join Texas Bullion Exchange's Principal Protection Program, you're going to get 3% bonus in silver on your entire gold portfolio. Now, this program protects the value of what you've earned. So when you put it into gold and then it's time to sell, you get back what you paid. Never less. In fact, usually it's more, but it's never less. And isn't that reassuring? This program protects the value of your gold. Take the pressure off. You and your loved ones can face the future with confidence when you put gold in your savings and claim your 3% in bonus silver when you do it. 855-839-2728 is their number. 855-837-2728. Or visit buytexasgold.com. Again, 855-839-2728 or buytexasgold.com. It's Texas Bullion Exchange. Experience, integrity, and value. So good to be with you today. Look at that beautiful shot on the Salem News Channel of the Grand Canyon, a place I've still never seen, I'm ashamed to admit, but I will one day. Thanks for watching on the Salem News Channel. Thanks for listening on great Stigall affiliates all over the country. You can get in here, 855-STIGALL if you want, 855-784-4255. Catch my email, all my social media, podcast, the Harumph Society coming out today, my 3 times a week newsletter. That's all at chrisstigall.com. I want to dive right in with one of my great friends, and probably, I think, as close to anybody on X that I know is similar to my point of view on this Iran-Israel thing. and that's Colonel Kurt Schlichter. 3 times a week, he's a senior columnist at Town Hall. He's the best-selling author of the brand new Los Angeles Silver Bullets on the Sunset Strip. Colonel, ahoy, and good morning.
Ahoy, but don't forget American Apocalypse, the second American Civil War, available for pre-order right now. It's amazing.
You never stop
and you
writing.
have a small
You're a
cameo.
machine. You're a machine. Oh, another cameo from Stigall. Well, that means it'll fly. That'll fly. Another bestseller instantly. All right. Look, I've been addressing all morning, Colonel, something that you know is going on full well. I call it a debate that I don't think is rooted in a lot of goodwill from some, I'm sorry to say, and it's internecine inside our tent. I don't know what I don't know what drives it. I don't know what it is. Perhaps you have some insight as to what drives it. But my general position is I'm not Dick Cheney and Lindsey Graham, but I'm also not Tucker Carlson and Candace Owen. Okay? So somewhere in between is where I find myself, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I was kind of annoyed. I tweeted about that last night. I was like, oh no, I'm at least theoretically on the same side as Lindsey Graham. Time to review where I'm standing, which of course is a good idea, because you always want to double check. Look, there are a lot of our friends, very good friends, who disagree with us strongly on Iran. Now, my position on Iran is simple: they killed Americans. All the mullahs need to die. I'm a very simple cat.
Does that mean regime change? Can I just stop you there and ask, because this term regime change, very obsessed with regime change. I'm not hearing Trump say he wants to annihilate their regime. Trump has not said that. Am I incorrect?
I know. I'm saying it.
You're saying it. Trump's not, though. Okay.
Trump is not. Trump is. I think Trump is handling this remarkably. You don't necessarily have to tell people what you think. You're not required to be Sonny Corleone. Sometimes you want to be Vito. But look, I'm not interested in going and changing the regime in Iran per se. If all the mullahs are dead, that kind of necessitates it. So it would be a consequence of what I want to do. And I want to be clear why. They've killed thousands of Americans. They've threatened us. They tried to kill our president. Okay? They caused terrorism all over the Middle East. They want to get a nuclear bomb so they can kill all the Jews, and then they want to kill the rest of us. So my point of view is, if you're my enemy, you should die. Again, Michael Corleone, which I can you tell I watched The Godfather a lot? I'm going to say something stupid, and then you can see I watched Godfather 3.
There's going to be an interview that's going to be getting a lot of attention, and the reason I keep referencing it is because I know a lot of this audience will see it. Or listen to it. And that is Ted Cruz joins Tucker Carlson, and they duke it out on this. And at one point, Tucker says to Ted Cruz, you don't believe, and I'll just pretend I'm saying it to you, you don't actually believe Iran is trying to kill an American president, because if you did, you'd send our boys in there and deal with them, was the charge from Tucker.
So.
You say?
No, we have a toolbox. As I learned in the Army War College, which is the party war college, the Chico State of war colleges, you have a toolbox of diplomatic, information, military, and economic means. There are various means to achieve your end. And just because you use one military means doesn't mean you have to use many. Now, I understand where guys... I wrote a tweet on what the argument against my position is, because I'm a lawyer, so I see both sides, or I try to. Same as an Army officer, you always want to see it from the enemy's side, so you know what they're doing. And look, they're not crazy, okay? This is not, if you don't support attacking Iran, you are not insane. Now, some people who do are insane. They're like, well, the Jewish people are making it so I can't perform sexually. You know, that kind of weirdness. No. Okay, I'm not talking about that.
This is, and can I just on that? Not performing sexually, but on that point, what is? And somebody asked me this rhetorically. I'm genuinely trying to figure it out. A lot of this sounds rooted in the prosecution of Israel, and I need to try to understand where that comes from.
Well, look, well, it is not our fight. Okay, well, I think it is, but yeah, there are two countries at war. We're not in it right now. And I understand that you don't think we should go and help another country, even though it's an ally. I get that. But also, we have 30 years of completely failed foreign policy, including 2 wars that killed thousands of Americans with nothing to show for it. Okay? Not trusting the establishment to prosecute this war correctly or not to lie about it is not unreasonable. It's not crazy.
It's not.
I think in this case it's wrong for a number of reasons, but it's not crazy. When you have somebody like Molly Hemingway doesn't think we should do it. Okay, am I supposed to start thinking that Molly Hemingway's an idiot? Because Molly Hemingway is most definitely not an idiot. But she disagrees with me on this. I'm a lawyer. Everyone I talked to disagreed with me, Chris. Every time I picked up the phone to call somebody else in a case, they didn't agree with me.
Let me lean on your expertise, Colonel Kurt Schlichter. Let me lean on your expertise. Why is this different than, say, Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam? What makes this different than those?
First, the notion that we will prosecute it correctly. The second is the articulation of the American interest going in. I believed, I worked in WMDs in the first Gulf War. For reasons I'm not going to go into in detail, I absolutely believe that Iraq had WMDs going into Iraq in 2003. It turns out that turned out not to be so. Okay, so it's kind of a problem when your justification isn't there. Here, I don't think we have that problem because they're literally saying we want to get an atomic bomb. Israel's intelligence has shown it. Our intelligence has shown it. Though I don't trust our intelligence, I do trust Israel's. They also
so when people say, okay, so let me jump in on that. So you just confessed we botched the intelligence on the WMDs in Iraq. So what in the world makes you think this isn't a lie and a botched intel operation too? And the Iranian mullahs are just sitting over there minding their own business and being mouthy on X.
So well, look, if first of all, the Israeli intelligence is good. There's like 1 billion Arab people and not a single one's carrying a beeper. That's how good it is, okay? Why would Israel launch a giant, expensive, dangerous, and polarizing war if it didn't believe its own intelligence? Okay, I think it is clear, and frankly, they had a nuclear agreement with us about enrichment, the JCPOA. So they've got a nuclear program, and they want to kill us all, and we know that because they've said so. Keep in mind, they've also killed, hundreds, maybe thousands of Americans in terrorist acts and in Iran or Iraq, which I don't know. Like I said, I'm a simple guy. When you kill one of my guys, I think we should kill everybody you ever met. And then,
do you think this leads, Colonel, to? I keep hearing this. We're heading into World War III. Here comes World War III. You say?
Well, no. Yeah, Russia's already said and demonstrated it has no capacity to intervene. China's not going to intervene. What? China's going to go fight a war for Iran? Come on. If you have a world war, that's not just war. You actually have to get the world and the three part, and we don't have that. As for tactics, techniques, and procedures, we are not talking about a ground invasion. Frankly, we don't have the capacity to do it anymore, because we may have in 1991 when I was in the Persian Gulf, but we are talking about air attacks to destroy specific facilities, which we could do without a real problem.
Didn't we do that to the Houthis recently? So it is different. And Colonel, I want a break. Can I don't know if you have the time. Can I hold you around for another break so I can keep picking your brain, your big beautiful brain?
Oh no, I've got a lot of things on my plate at 5:16 a.m. Of course you do.
This is why we love waking up Colonel Kurt Schlichter in the middle of the night out there on the West Coast. He's good enough to do it. One of the few. We're grateful for him. Hang on. Stand by, Colonel. More with Kurt Schlichter, senior columnist at Town Hall, author of Lost Angeles and many other bestsellers, and more on the way. in just a minute. I got an email yesterday, timely as though torn from today's headlines. Colonel Kurt Schlichter is back with us. It's from Jim in Peoria, and he said, I can't get enough of Colonel Kurt Schlichter. I just read Lost Angeles last month. Fun read. Took me back to the Raymond Chandler series based in L.A. in the 30s. Thanks for all you do. Anyway, you've got a fan named Jim in Peoria, Kurt, that just wanted to say hello. So thank you,
Jim. The check is on the way.
We should not, Colonel, we should not dismiss the fact that for the better part of 20 years we have been funding Iran. The United States is culpable in that. I mean, let's just be honest.
The last 30 years of American foreign policy have been an unbroken track record of failure, stupidity, fecklessness, and a variety of FCC non-compliant adjectives and verbs. It is so. Yeah, we have. I won't say we've been our own worst enemy, but I'm trying to figure out what our worst enemy would do differently if it could make us, if it could control our foreign policy. That's what I like about Donald Trump. He he wants America to win. And I like the way he's playing it. I mean,
do you think he's being duped? Can I just ask you this? Because there are people who genuinely believe all of a sudden that he's been tricked, he's been compromised. Warmongers have hijacked his administration, and his presidency is over because of it. This is what they say, and you say,
it's those cunning Jews again. I don't understand. There are certain things in America where people just go crazy, and there are a large number of people, when Jewish people are involved, there are a large number of people who start to go insane and say stupid things, but also involving Trump too. People go insane when they talk about Trump. So this is like the perfect storm of stupidity. In what other way has Donald Trump been manipulated and tricked? In any kind of long-lasting way. I mean, he makes mistakes. The hey, we're not going to go get the illegal aliens at hotels and non-Beatles strawberry fields. That was a mistake, and he turned around and stopped doing it, which I love about Trump. He doesn't hesitate to go, well, this ain't working. Done. But Donald Trump's position on this has been unchanged for 10 years and 2 days since he came down the escalator. So. Do these people now think that Donald Trump's a sucker? Because I don't see the evidence, guys.
I don't either. I trust Trump. That's been my default position, and it hasn't changed yet. On the immigration front, the border, he is backing off a little bit, saying, hey, we need them in hotel rooms, we need them in farms. We're going to look at maybe trying to soft sell that a little bit. You just wrote a column with about a minute to go here, Colonel. Sorry to rush it, but you wrote a column that basically said, let's deport them all. That's literally. We voted to deport every single one of them.
Well, let me go quick because I only have 2 Bulwark wedding nights. Yes. Look, I think, you have to set priorities, right? They let 20 million people in. You can't say, just grab anybody at random. You set priorities. That's not unreasonable. It's kind of silly to announce them in the sense that you're saying, well, we're not going to touch anybody in this sector. That's not what you say. You don't say what you're not going to do. You say what you will. We're going after the double criminals because anybody who's an illegal alien is already a criminal. We're looking for criminals plus. And I think that's a reasonable use of priorities. I think it was, and he didn't say, well, he kind of said it personally, but, I think it's just a bad idea to be announcing, oh, well, this sector's okay. You want everybody to be like, I don't know, I better get out of here while the getting's good, and they'll buy me a ticket.
20 seconds. This is a loser issue for Democrats, right? They're dying on this hill, but it's a loser of an issue for them, isn't it?
It's right up there with, I'm going to go hassle a bunch of working class cops on video, and all America will love me. I don't understand. I think Trump's greatest gift is having idiot opposition.
Colonel Kurt Schlichter, go catch all of his bestsellers. They're over his shoulder if you're watching on the Salem News Channel. Follow him on X. His most recent bestseller is Lost Angeles. Colonel, thank you. We have Senator Eric Schmitt just around the corner. He's leading a big investigation into the auto pen. Next. He is one of my favorite United States senators, and not just because he hails from my home state of Missouri, but because he's genuinely one of the most rock-solid, rock-ribbed conservative senators that I know we can count on when all is said and done. He's Eric Schmitt, and we're so thrilled to have him this morning on what has been a very, very busy few weeks. It's always busy, I guess, in the Trump era. Glad to have you, Senator. Good morning.
It's good to be with you again, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I know you've got a lot of important stuff going on in the Senate right now. I want to try to get to all of it in a short amount of time. Let's start with some of the things coming across the desk, specifically on the Senate Judiciary Committee, of which you're a member. I was really intrigued yesterday. I was telling this audience about something Chuck Grassley and Kash Patel have exchanged about communist China monkeying around in the 2020 elections. Election integrity is something I know you care deeply about. This audience cares deeply about. Falsifying IDs for Americans and thus maybe falsifying votes in 2020. Is that maybe what we're onto here?
I mean, we'll see. It's obviously a shocking revelation that we're definitely going to want to know more about. That was given to Chairman Grassley, and I'm sure that's not the last we're going to hear of it. And of course, in 2020. I think did more to sour people's belief in election integrity than any election in my lifetime. I mean, you had not only the media and big tech colluding to hide the Hunter Biden laptop story, which is now, of course, in the Missouri versus Biden lawsuit that I filed when I was Attorney General, we took the deposition of Elvis Chan, who was the FBI agent, pre-bunking the story and letting them know this was going to be some Russian hack and leak operation. They knew their laptop was real. And, of course, all that stuff comes out after the election. And then you had, which was the nature of some of the litigation I was involved with, too, you had a lot of states, you had Mark Elias and his liberal cronies suing every state in the union trying to upend their election laws under the guise of COVID. But really what they wanted to do was make mass mail-in balloting a lot easier and less secure. And they were successful in a couple states of changing their election laws. In Georgia, entered into a settlement agreement. Pennsylvania, actually, the Supreme Court changed the law. Anyway, so there was a lot of shenanigans going on in 2020, that no doubt. But this revelation certainly could be a blockbuster, and I suppose there's going to be more to come.
And I know maybe it's a cliche now, but Trump losing 2020 actually wound up biting the left hard. I mean, if in fact they really did rig that election, and I have every reason to believe that there was certainly unconstitutional behavior, if not outright rigging, I think they rue the day, given where we sit today.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I actually, when I played golf with President Trump in January, I had this conversation with him that in some ways, having a non-consecutive term is better for him. It was outside of the COVID window. He was able to the American people saw what the left would actually do if they had the reins of power for the 4 years of Joe Biden or whoever was actually running the White House at the time, the lefties writing the white papers who were pressing go on the auto pen, whoever it was. They saw the excesses of big government. They saw all of that in clear view, and the American people rejected it. President Trump had time, I think, to sort of really put together a team he wanted to have. You had really true America First folks. You didn't have some of the more establishment types that had populated the first term in some ways. And so I think that in a lot of ways, to your point, President Trump, 47, has the benefit of hindsight, and you see all this agenda that's moving forward now is, I think, a part of that. And I really do believe you put all those pieces together, whether it's rebalancing trade, a different view on foreign policy, the ability through reconciliation that we're going through right now in the Senate to make real change, lasting change. This is going to be the golden age of America, and President Trump was able to usher it in, I think, with a lot of the benefit of some of that hindsight.
Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt with us. You mentioned the auto pen. I know you're specifically looking into that. I think some people kind of want to shrug it off and say, a guy with a lack of cognitive function, he's an old guy. My granddad's kind of an old guy. He's slipping. What's the big... I see that, and I know you share. That is a major American scandal. It's not just a one-off shoulder shrug, is it? Which is why I think you're taking it very seriously, the auto pen business.
I think it's perhaps maybe the biggest scandal that was never recognized in American history. Bigger than Watergate. I mean, you had literally the President of the United States would get lost in a bathroom. And this guy was like totally incompetent, and everybody kind of knew it. They shielded him from a lot of people, but when he had that debate, then of course it was on full display, and the Democrats had nowhere to hide. What the truth is, they were willing to do just about anything to hold on to power, including prop up, in a weekend at Bernie's like term, a guy who didn't know where he was, in order to maintain the power that they had accumulated and exercised in ways that the American people had never seen before. They were basically making the argument, Chris, that this guy could be around for another 4 years. It wasn't just that he was competent at the time. It's that he could actually be president for another 4 years. That is a huge lie. It's a huge scandal. And this committee hearing that we're having, on Wednesday, today, is not really backwards looking. It's really forward looking. Like, we got to make sure this never happens again. I was the first senator to call for the invocation of the 25th Amendment about a year ago. The Democrats were still making excuses. They never did it. The cabinet never did. But the 25th Amendment was put in place for situations like that. And there was just no courage, certainly among Democrats. And then, of course, their liberal media allies who were desperate just to make sure President Trump never returned to office. They were willing to go along with this lie as well. So I think it deserves the kind of investigation and exploration that we're going to give with the committee hearing tomorrow and certainly beyond that.
There's so much going on, so we'll monitor that and hope we can have you back after you found some new details in that hearing. May I ask you about the status of the big, beautiful bill? As I read it, at least as of yesterday, it sounds like the SALT deduction stuff is being changed a bit. Understandably, a lot of conservatives not thrilled about it from non-blue states. I get it. Medicare, rather Medicaid, I should say, some changes there. The fraud, I think, is being dealt with. Do you guys think you're going to make this a more conservative bill when it's all said and done, more so than the House?
I do. I think there's a real desire, including from me personally, to find more spending reforms in this. And I guess the way to look at this, there's a couple. So the reconciliation bill deals with mandatory spending. The normal appropriations process deals with discretionary spending. So there's two, and then you've got the rescissions package, which is kind of claws back wasteful spending. And we can talk more about that some other time, but I'm handling the rescission package in the Senate probably sometime in the month of July. So think of that as sort of three legs to a stool here. But the big one, the big beautiful bill, is the mandatory spending side. And so that is where you're going to have a lot of the extension of the tax cuts you saw in 2017. If we don't do that, Chris, it's a $4 trillion tax increase that would hit middle class and working families the hardest. So we got to get that done. But it's got a lot of president's priorities. It sort of front loads funding for the border, so we don't have to negotiate with the Democrats because we only need 51 votes in the Senate. So all the detention beds, additional ICE agents to go fulfill the promise of meeting mass migration with mass deportations, that's here. The no tax on tips, the no tax on overtime, that's here. But then you get into some of the other issues. I mean, quite frankly, the House negotiated something of $40,000 state and local tax deduction. So basically they can deduct the high taxes in these blue states. I just don't, I think it's ridiculous that we would be subsidizing J.B. Pritzker and Gavin Newsom's stupid decisions. And that's the kind of nobody in the Senate. And now I understand the practical issues that there are 5 people in the House that this is their big thing, but it's a bicameral process. And the Senate's going to have their say on this. But having said that, Chris, I do think we're going to get there. But this is sort of the point in the process of the legislative sausage making that can get, you're going to have a clash of ideas. But I think ultimately we want to deliver for President Trump and we want to deliver for the American people.
Senator Schmitt, could I ask you about Rand Paul, who you know well, is cantankerous on the issue of debt ceilings? I know you are too. Is it possible what he asks, let's not raise the debt ceiling and I'll support this big, beautiful bill? Is that even a possibility in your view?
It's not, and I've never supported a debt ceiling increase because there was never a plan. The reason why I'm willing to go there here is because there actually is a plan, and we've got President Trump in office and a House and a Senate Republican, conference that can actually start to bend this thing the other way. The challenge with what Rand is talking about is it does make sense to have the debt ceiling in this bill because you're only dealing with Republicans. You only need 51 votes. If you pull the debt ceiling out of this, then you're dealing with Democrats and need 60 votes to raise the debt ceiling. The cost will be way higher with what the Democrats want, which will be a massive increase in spending. And so The more practical issue here is if we've got to deal with the debt ceiling issue, we ought to deal with it here where we're dealing with Republicans who are going to be much more conservative on the issue. That's my perspective.
Final, and I hate to cram this into a short answer, but Israel, Iran.
Yeah.
You know that there are a lot of conservatives who seem to be concerned we're being, quote, dragged into a war. I don't know how you view this. So far, I'm not convinced that Donald Trump has committed a single troop to any kind of combat. I don't see it that way, that we're committing our troops to war. We are involved to a degree. We're interested parties for sure. How do you see what Trump is doing right now in Iran?
I trust President Trump. I think he's ushered in a new era of viewing foreign policy and any engagement under the lens of what is in the core national interest of the United States of America, the United States of America. And Israel is engaged in this unilateral action, and they view, and it's their right to take action if they view the existential threat of Iran, who, by the way, through its proxies, started all of this with October 7th. I think in many ways, Iran is weaker than they've been in generations maybe now, because they've taken out the Hezbollah, they've taken out Hamas. The Houthis are still kind of a nagging problem, but I think one of the reasons why President Trump went to Saudi Arabia and had such a successful trip there was Saudi Arabia can be more engaged with the Houthis. They were before until Joe Biden lifted the terrorist designation on them. And so I think you're going to see more cooperation. I think that really how this all started was Iran was terrified that you'd see a normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel, and that you might have more Arab countries coming into the Abraham Accords, which was a great achievement by President Trump. And so they then sort of greenlit the October 7th massacre. So what Israel's doing is they're taking on their chief adversary, and I think President Trump is watching this, and I trust he'll make good decisions here.
Thanks a ton for listening to the Chris Stigall Show this morning on this fantastic radio station. Or perhaps you're watching us on the Salem News Channel and seeing that beautiful shot of Grand Teton National Park this morning. Thanks for watching and getting that app so that you can watch or listen or both anywhere you go, anytime you want on the go. Salem News Channel app is free. Click Watch Live, and there's the show. Not just this morning's show, our show, but all day long on the Salem News Channel. All our great shows. Hope you'll check it out. The Harumph Society is rolling out today, too. If you don't have your membership yet, I will tell you this, we're for $1,000 givers to the Angel Tree campaign, I'm giving it away for life. That's how committed I am to this charitable endeavor that we have partnered with for years here. My parent company, the Salem Media Group, has partnered with a ministry called Prison Fellowship, and specifically every summer they try to get as many kids from generally pretty rough areas, and always at least one incarcerated parent. They try to get these kids off to a summer camp experience that could change their minds and hearts about their futures forever. And it is because of your charitable giving that it has worked so well over many years. This is my first campaign with them since we launched our show, and I am so happy and honored to report that there were dozens of you who gave up to $1,000 or more. Every $200 donation sends one of these kids to camp for an entire week. It is amazing what the Angel Tree Camp can do. I mean, they can squeeze $200 to make it last. Food, lodging, the whole deal for one child for the whole week. All over the country, these kids from these rough areas with seemingly no hope and no future, they get to hear a gospel-centered message, most importantly, at this camp. It can change their lives. This is how you can really impact the future of the country. This is the last week we're going to talk about it. We hit the goal of 455 kids, and I am so humbled and appreciative of this audience's generosity. I love that you have a heart for this, and you keep on giving. And this is your chance to keep doing it. If you give $1,000, I make you a harumpher for life. But if you can't do 1,000, you can't do 200, you can't do 100, do 5. You can go to chrisstigall.com and click on the banner right at the top of my website right now. It says give the gift of camp this summer and give what you can. Angeltree.org/Chris is also a way to do it online if you want to type in the address, or call 888-206-2794. 888-206-2794. Thank you for your charitable giving this campaign. It has absolutely blown my mind. And the Angel Tree folks specifically reached out to me yesterday to tell you thank you on behalf of them. They are blown away and so appreciative of your generosity. Thank you very, very much. Did you see the text that Team Trump released from Mike Huckabee to Donald Trump yesterday? It was a thing of beauty. Former governor of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee, who is now the ambassador to Israel for the Trump administration. Team Trump released it because it was so beautifully written. And if you didn't read it or hear it, let me read it to you. This is a text directly from Mike Huckabee's phone to Trump's phone, and they'd released the text. Mr. President, God spared you in Butler, Pennsylvania to be the most consequential president in a century, maybe ever. The decisions on your shoulders I would not want to be made by anyone else. You have many voices speaking to you, sir, but there is only one voice that matters, His voice. I am your appointed servant in this land, and I am available for you, but I do not try to get in your presence often because I trust your instincts. No president in my lifetime has been in a position like yours, not since Truman in 1945. I don't reach out to persuade you, only to encourage you. I believe you will hear from heaven, and that voice is far more important than mine or anyone else's. You sent me to Israel to be your eyes and ears and voice and to make sure our flag flies above our embassy. My job is to be the last one to leave. I will not abandon this post. Our flag will not come down. You did not seek this moment. This moment sought you. It is my honor to serve you. Signed, Mike Huckabee. That was a text directly to the President of the United States. It warmed my heart to read it, and I was so glad President Trump shared that publicly with everyone. What a good man. And for people that assume that everyone around Donald Trump is angling and agitating for war, I thought that text right there was emblematic of some very fine people who are in his ear, who are not angling for anything, who don't have any presumption that they can tell this president or influence this president's decision-making, but rather say, trust God. Trust in God. I am praying for you. I believe you will listen to God. I believe God has placed you in this moment. It is biblical, by the way. He ordains leaders all over the globe, just like he's ordained this one. And prayers for this president, prayers for this situation, and understanding, most importantly, God is on the throne and in perfect control of all of this is key for every man and woman to understand. Control is a figment of our imagination. Mike Huckabee understands that. I am profoundly grateful that he is part of the president's cabinet, or I guess organization, administration, I should say. Under Trump, blue-collar wages soar at the fastest rate since 1969. Wages for blue-collar workers are up more in the first 5 months of Trump's second term than at any other time since 1969. I trust Trump. So that's a wrap for another Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks for committing to it, listening to it all the way through. You're a fighter. I like that about you. Hope you'll leave it a 5-star review and a written review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll see you next time here on the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.